Hello, Liz. Good to see you again. How are you doing?
I'm really well, thank you. How are you?
Not too bad. I have planned this very interesting subject, and I'm very excited because I think this one is very important for everyone, or at least after you pass 40 or around there, it's very important. Do you think everybody goes through this, or what do you think? Or some people can skip it?
I think the majority of people go through midlife crisis. It's a process of growth and transformation. So when we're going through this sort of process, what it does is help you realign to who you are rather than what you've been taught to be. So it's rare that you see somebody that's actually been allowed to be their full self from a child all the way through, or they may go through some early trauma and do a fair bit of work on themselves. So then their midlife crisis isn't as harsh.
So you think it's like a wake-up call that comes from inside?
I think
From
it's a endurance race of having to tolerate all of the processes we have to go through of giving up ourselves. So we, especially when we have children or a family, so we're relinquishing our own needs in order to provide for other people. And when they start getting a bit independent, like having children is a constant birthing. So you give birth to them at the beginning, and then you're giving birth again when they go to school, and then when they're going to high school and their first partner or boyfriend or girlfriend, and then it's like they're getting married, and then you're giving birth again every time. So there's like this spiritual birth you're giving to them all the time. So every time you're releasing a little bit, you're having to then reclaim who you were, of who you gave up. So this is why I believe midlife crisis happens around that 40, 50-year old sort of stage, because we're now getting our own independence back without having to be there 24/7 for our children. So we go through like having to physically support them when they're very young. And then we start having to emotionally support them. And then they go out and start getting their needs met externally out in the world. And they're not relying full time on you. So then you're sitting there scratching your head going, well, what's my purpose? So and what's really, I was only discussing this the other day, what's really interesting is women tend to lose themselves more because they're the mother and primarily the first nurturer and caregiver. And even though men are there, their roles are different. Like men are more into, let's go and support the family, let's give the woman what she needs to be able to be the best mother. And so the mother tends to lose herself and takes her hat off very quickly, her own identity hat. And then the man tends to get a little bit isolated sometimes from that family unit. But that's also part of the role of him being the hunter and the gatherer. And part of that, for a man, when he goes into, his later age, and he's looking at, well, what am I doing? All I'm doing is providing. Like, what am I getting out of this? Where's me in this picture? And women go through the same thing, but in a different way. So women's processes are more, how can I serve my children? How can I love them? Am I getting enough love back from them? And it's like that we've got this more peripheral approach to the family unit as a woman, whereas men tend to be a little bit more singular. And that's not saying that they're not there for their partner and their children. Their thinking's more singular. So more independent, more lone ranger sort of thinking. So they're on that treadmill. And the problem with being on that treadmill is you're losing yourself, but nowhere along the line are you taught who you are or allowed to be yourself, even from childhood. We get this process of brainwashing that we have, of the growth and the growing up that we do, of the environment around us. So we tend to lose ourselves a bit in that process. And then we come through to a point where it's like, well, what am I here for? So midlife crisis can show up in many different ways. It can show up in, I need a nice new car. I want something for me. I've sacrificed enough. And, it can show up in, this marriage isn't doing anything for me anymore. All I've ever done is provide and I've got nothing back. or it can show up in, my life is dead. I just want to go out and party all the time. Or it can show up in, the other way of withdrawal. So it really depends on what that person goes through as a result to get to that place of, is this all there is? And I
Yeah,
believe that's what midlife crisis is.
yeah, it does. I think people, or most of people, they go in depression because of that. They
Yeah.
suffer too much. They don't have an anchor. They don't have something to hang on. Because usually we have a goal, a small
Mm.
one going from here to there, like you said, the kids, to see them in school, this and that, or people that they don't have kids, they focus more to in work, making money, achieving material stuff. But after they do that and they achieve that, they feel empty because
Yeah. I think that emptiness is, I'm doing all this external stuff
yes,
for a payback, and the payback is normally love back, right? Or validation or acceptance. And after a while, the kids aren't doing that, and the partners, and even if you're a single mum, you're still sitting there looking at, what am I getting back? Because you do all this investment, and we're doing it out of love, of course. But then there's sort of like, well, hang on, there's been a lot of take here. And even
nothing.
though we choose to have these children, we see that take. And when that take becomes like very evident, we then start to question why. Why have we given so much blindly? Why have we outpoured so much? And your answer is, I love them, or, I've invested, but you realize how much you've sacrificed of yourself in the process. And that need to give is a beautiful need, right? But it's when we're sitting there waiting for those people to
To
fulfill us,
receive.
or the job, or the car, or the new lover, and we're looking for fulfillment externally, and it's not there. Not
Yes,
true fulfillment, it's not there.
that's the
It's
common.
internally.
That's correct. Very well said. Because
Mm.
most people they waiting for something in return. It's not like they demanding from kids or someone, but it's that feel of love that they want to see it coming back to them.
But that's what we're trained with as a child. You behave and I'll love you. You behave and you won't get negative attention. You behave and you fit into the criteria of what I'm expecting from you as a parent. You fit into that, and you're going to be guaranteed some sort of positive feedback, some love, some attention, some validation. And so we learn how to suppress our needs through that process. And it's not really intentional by any parent. No one sits
No,
there going, oh, let me screw over my child. We've got this perception of how we want our children to look and how their lifestyle's going to be. And we're prepared to do that. And it often comes from our own lack of our own childhood. So we're then sort of trying to improve their life without really adapting to the fact that each one of those children are different souls with different needs. So we're blanketing our need over the top of these children. And then what happens with the children is they learn the same pattern. They sacrifice themselves in order to get love and approval. And so we do that for a long time. And I think midlife crisis is, hang on for a minute, this has to stop. And then it's sort of like, but if I stop it, what do I do? I don't know beyond that what that is. So there's a bit of discovery and self-discovery in midlife crisis. And it's like, and some people will use material things, or, sex, drugs, alcohol as a filling up of that pain, or filling up of that void. And rather than going through that process of what's really going on here, what do I need to work through? What haven't I really owned about myself? They will go through that depression stage, or they go through I feel empty, like I'm not getting the feedback. Like, where's the trade of love? I've done nothing but give, right? And because it's really, I know from even my experience, when my children sort of left home, or they started leaving home when they stopped wanting cuddles. When they wouldn't sit on the lounge with me and have a cuddle and watch TV together, Or, it was like when they're getting out of the car and it's like, don't kiss me, mum. Like this separation you start getting from your children, because you do get so much love from your children. It's unconditional love. And I think the beautiful part of it is it allows you to be who you are as they're separating.
It's a
But what
process that
happens,
needs to happen.
yeah, so what happens, a lot of parents actually start to cling on to the children and still get their needs met. So then the children feel pressured to actually perform or meet the other adults' needs. So we start trying to fulfill this void. And the real way to fulfill it is spirituality or authenticity. All right. So authenticity is all about loving yourself for who you are, removing all of the old programming that you've had through childhood experiences, life, conditioning, and come back to the real you. But who teaches us this stuff?
I was about to say that there's no teaching about this. Going back to yourself and discover who you really are and why are you here.
Mm.
You go outside looking for fulfillment from other things like buying a new car, like you said, or but that's not gonna help. It's gonna help on short run. You buy that car, you buy whatever you want, and then you still feel empty if you
Yeah.
don't go inside and communicate with yourself.
Yeah. And what I find, like, even like I've got a fairly new car. I went out and bought it. But to me, that was a car that was going to be with me for a purpose in life. But I wanted a new one because I was a woman traveling on my own. So I had purpose with that, not just look at me, look at my new car, look who I am. And that's where we're trying to get the external validation. So it's about validating what we truly want and then living with the commitment of that.
Yes, it does come like you have that feeling that you need to leave something behind, like you want to do, because when you start life when you're young, you're gonna say, oh, I'm gonna do something different, I'm gonna be different from other people, I'm gonna change the world. And then you step in this life pattern with kids and stuff. And after that, you start wondering, hold on a second, I paused my life since I was 20 or something. Now I have to go back there and start again, whatever my dreams were, or and you have that need to feel young.
Mm.
And maybe some people they try themselves go to gym more to feel young again because they missed all this time it went by, and they get depressed on that sense that their body, their image, their youth is not there.
Yes. And I think the big thing, even myself going through that process, was self acceptance. Like, a lot of my life I was a single mum and it was by choice. I wanted to be a single mum. I didn't want to convolute, my children's lives any more than what had happened for them. And I decided a long time that I just had to accept my lot in life. My choice, everything I made, every choice I made was my choice, even if I was making it unconsciously or consciously. And it was
Yes,
like owning that choice, even if I didn't realize the choice I was making, it was still owning it. Because if you make a decision, you can always make another decision over the top if it doesn't work out. And it's like not about punishing yourself for the lack of knowledge or awareness, but about going, okay, now I can see what I've done, own it, make a new decision. But I think what a lot of people do is they go through this process of beating themselves up because they have a sense of failure around their midlife age.
yes,
They have failed themselves. And when they've failed themselves, because no one else is standing there feeding them anymore, they're not getting the love. And sometimes the partners, are sort of distance and they're like ships in the night passing. So they're starting to look at, well, what have I given all of this for? And part of it is because they haven't really been present, like themselves present in it. They're doing all this sort of stuff, one, out of responsibility, two out of obligation and three out of a commitment they've made 20 or 30 years back. And then they're sitting there going, well, I've blindly given without being really fully present.
Yeah, what
And
about
there's,
me? Sort of.
yeah, yeah. And that's what I mean, like being able to put your needs on the table, right? So our needs on the table and being able to speak up is to be able to go, okay, who am I? What do I want out of this life? And how do I ask for it? Because you have to have mutual obligation, right? So, and mutual agreement when you're in a partnership. Even with your children, you have to have that. There's got to be a level of understanding of what the give and take is. And I think some of us just suppress our needs and go into automatic mode, which is our subconscious programming. We go into automatic mode and then we wake up one day and go, what was all that for? Like, I've just done nothing but subconsciously been in those patterns. And now I'm waking up going, what was my whole purpose in all of that?
And you feel the pressure, there is not enough time left.
Yes, right. And I've met a partner recently, and we've talked about time. And it's like turning 60 is a psychological milestone in many ways, right? So you're like, wow, I actually made it. But then you're also like, well, geez, how much time do I have left? Because we have this sort of mental attitude that once you're in your 60s, you're on your downhill slope. And I'm going, well, is that really true? Or is that what you've told? So it's like looking at, even if we've got 2 years left or 2 days left or 20 years left, the bottom line is to be present in every day.
Yes.
And how do you do that when you're in the middle of a midlife crisis, when you're looking at everything externally going, well, nothing's meeting my needs? But the reason why you go through that is because you haven't met your needs. You haven't sat long enough to be uncomfortable and have a real look in.
I think this uncomfortable and sometimes pain
Mm,
brings you back inside.
yes. But that pain is transformation when we sit with it.
Yes,
Because with pain, we have to be honest about how we've neglected ourselves. How we've given up a lot for our family. Nothing wrong with giving up. I don't regret anything I did for my kids at all, because I know that I did my absolute best and that was all that mattered to me. And I've got time now with my kids both off my hands and having their own lives. There's an element of freedom with that. And it's beautiful because it's like, right, I can come back into my own space and just pick up where I drop the bundle, like on me. And I can actually fully embrace me now and what I want to do.
that's right. You can be 30 in your 30s and have no time, and
Yeah.
you can be in your 60s and have time in your
Mm.
60s. So,
And, I've often said the irony of, having kids, and when you have them, your money's just like going out the door everywhere,
go
right?
everywhere.
And, we provide for our kids first. Like, the food we buy and the places we take them. And, it's all about watching their joy and watching them grow up and develop into beautiful humans. And yet we sit there and keep pouring out, and we're working so hard to provide. And, it's the time when we need the most amount of money and we need the bigger home, but we've got the opposite. We've got no money and no small home, right? And then you get into like your 50s and 60s, and you're like, you've got all this time on your hand, you've got the bigger house, and you've had all the big money to pay things off. And then you're sort of left with, well, now what? I've got everything that I needed when they were, 2 and 3. And now what do I do with it? So then it's sort of like having to look at and restructure your life based on what your needs are. So I
Yes.
think that's the hard part for most of us, is because we're building this life for our children. And then, what was that for?
The one thing is, when you're young, you want to go and discover the world and travel, and you don't have this kind of money. When you're older, you kind of get the money, but now you're more around searching and seeking peace rather than excitement and going, and peace becomes more important in a way But peace
Absolutely.
brings you inside, because if you focus outside, traveling and discovering, and you always live outside of yourself.
Exactly. And, it's about having the every moment experience. So if you're going to travel, not to, put the stickers all over your car and, to have all the postcards mailed out to everybody and like, look at me, you're not living the experience. So you've got to go every day, you have to live that experience. And every morning has to be a choice. Like we get up, you think about when we wake in the mornings, what's the first thing you think of? It's one, what day is it? What do I have to do? What's on the agenda today? And get up, shower, whatever your morning routine is. Your brain is already in gear for those goals. But you
Yes,
have to pause and go, what do I want now? What's for me today? And I think we get so caught up in the doing that we forget to the being.
yes,
So, and that's what we are. We are human beings. So we're here to be, not do.
yes. And there's another pattern. Usually, when you later in life, you don't have so much tolerance for things that you used to do when you're young. I don't know why. It's like you're less tolerant when other people talk or when things happen, rather than when you're young and you let go easier. I
That's
think
because you
that
give it up so much.
accumulates too much in time.
Yeah, you give up
And,
too much of yourself over time.
and
You get tired. You get
yes,
tired of losing you in the picture. And part of that is not being able to sit in who you really are before you even go through midlife crisis.
I think we look too much on our children's achievements. Like you said, and some part of us want them to be a version of ourselves with
Mm,
more achievements, but they
mm.
want their own achievements, which not always match yours.
Yeah.
And we sometimes look at them that, you want them to succeed more than you do,
Mm.
but they have to go through their own growth.
Yeah, and we do live through our children. Like they're our world. When we bring them in, they come into these innocent little beings, and like without any nurturing or feeding, or they will just shrivel up and die. That's just how it is. So we learn to take care of them, and in that learning, some of the joy is their first smile, or when their face lights up when they see you first, the in the cot, and how they respond to you, and you start getting this interaction of unconditional love from them. And
And
it's such an important phase, not just for you, but for the children.
when they're little, you get the love from them. When they grow up, you can't get it that easier because you
No,
have
no,
you can't.
yeah. It's sometimes it is like, pulling teeth trying to get a cuddle back.
Yes.
And I was always a very affectionate mum. So, when my son stopped, he was very affectionate as well. And when he stopped cuddling me, I felt like someone had cut my throat because
Yeah.
it was like just I was starving. So I was getting so much from that. And, I had to go through the acceptance of that.
For
It's
me to
literally
be,
had to go, well, you're not meeting my needs
yeah,
anymore.
it is what it is. For me to be honest, I did
Yeah.
start questioning life when I was around 40, but I was lucky I discovered spirituality and I discovered God and I discovered, because before that I got into this when I was younger. I was a bit into this spirituality, but then life got in between. I got derailed with life, and then when I was around 40, I got back questioning that God existence and purpose of life. And God was an anchor for me. I discovered spirituality again, I discovered God, and then I made this connection inside of myself with me and God, and that helped me
Yeah.
a lot. I had to realize that if I was like I used to be without this connection inside, probably would have been depressed. But it was just the right time
Yeah.
when I got this anchor and when I made the connection inside, it was perfect timing. But for many people, it doesn't happen. And they do struggle
I
to
know.
find.
And that's when they start. Yeah. Yeah. And I think the hardest part is we're educated that life is external. It's not an internal process. So
Yes,
we're taught very early that our needs are external and they're met, pardon me, they're met externally. So we keep expecting them to be met externally. Nobody shows us that love's internal or our experience is internal. And our God self or our spirituality or our soul, whatever you want to call it, the woo-woo stuff or the reality is our intuitive self lives within. So our experience is happening in here based on what's happening out there. And so when we stop relying on what's out there, we can still have the experience. And
yeah.
that connecting the dots between the two of those is where I think humans get challenged.
Even this thing with the religion, in this whole wide world, it depends when you're born, you get that religion in your country.
Yeah,
And that's the need of people to have like an almighty power that they can rely on it and hang on to it. But usually people look for God again in the external part. They look in the sky, they pray looking up in the sky.
absolutely.
They, instead of going inside of themselves and find it there, the
Mhm.
connection with God. And since they look outside, they're again lost.
Still externalized.
They're externalized, like you
Yeah,
said.
yeah. So, and that's, I mean, when you look at governments and religions or big corporations, they're all about meeting your needs. Like, we'll meet your needs, we'll take care of you,
Yes, yes, yes.
and that still gives you that external validation, right? Rather than owning who you are. And I think, how do we own who we are? How do we come to that process where we start to learn who we are? I think it's when we go through loss. And you think about if you
Yeah.
lose your health or you lose a partner or you lose somebody, it's loss. And it's like, well, who am I without that? And it's then starting to look in. But what a lot of people do is go into a bit of panic because once something's removed, they have this sense of emptiness that they can't live with. That emptiness feels like a psychological or physical death. That's what loss feels like. It's like the crucifixion of Jesus. So when we're going through that crucifixion, we then try to externalize again because we're in human form and that's our reality, that everything's external. But I think that's part of our spiritual growth here as a human. We come in here, forget who we are, and then come out the other side to know who we are, hopefully.
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 I think it's the same when someone dies in the family or relatives. It's the same. We don't grieve, sort of. If we don't grieve them, we grieve us because
Our
we
loss,
left
yeah.
without them. That
Yes.
need.
Yeah, because that person filled something, or your job filled something, or even your partner, if you separate, it filled a need.
And then it's
So
not there anymore.
it's not there. So our ego mind can't handle the loss because it thought it had it all stacked up and sorted. Like the external security's there. And when that bit has been taken away, there's a shattering of the ego. That's the mental crucifixion that you go through. And it's like, I don't know who I am without that, whether it's
Yeah.
without your mum and dad or a child or partner or health or, a job. Because we've identified, like from an ego perspective, we're identifying who we are based on that external experience. So if we can pull back in and go, okay, without that, who am I? And that's what the crucifixion gives you. It gives you the opportunity to look in and go, well, who am I without that? Rather than who do I need to be to maintain that?
We have to stay more inside and experience world from inside, not from outside. When you're young, when you're a child, that's what you do. And because you stay so much inside, That's why the world outside looks so amazing. You look at little bugs, you look at leaves, they all look amazing to you
Mm,
because you live inside and you watch everything that happens outside. But
mm.
as you grow, like I said, the society teaches us to rely on the external things. And you kind
I,
of get
yeah.
out of yourself and living your life outside.
I think just being born makes us need other people because our basic needs are met externally. We can't survive on our own. So we're naturally conditioned that way. We're conditioned to rely on other people. And then as we're growing up in our family, whether the parents being good, bad, and ugly, with their parenting, is we then learn how to not take care of ourselves because we're meeting their need to make sure we still feel loved and secure. So there's nowhere along that line, unless you've got extremely conscious parents, not soft parenting, I'm talking conscious parenting, that actually help you learn and identify who you are and allow you to be you and not put their own agenda over the top of you, then you won't go through a midlife crisis because it means you've already learned to own yourself at a very early age. But who does that? How many parents that are in their 20s and 30s have gone through that process themselves to be able to then go, oh, I can consciously parent this child? I mean, even I made mistakes all the way through parenting because I wasn't aware enough. But what happens is own it, apologize for if you've hurt anybody or you've not been at your best, and go, but my love and intention was still there. It was always an intention to love you the best way I could at the time. And to sit there and beat yourself up over what things you've failed in, it's lack of awareness. It's not a crucifixion. And we don't need to punish ourselves for that. We just need to own it, apologize if you need to, and move on from it. Because I think the more the ego mind, the irony of the ego mind is one, we're set up to fail, set up to externalize everything. And then when we wake up, we blame ourselves for it when
Yes,
we didn't know. And then it starts to sabotage you on all your failings. And have you really failed if you didn't know? I mean, it's like sitting a test for the HSC or, to become a master's in business. And you get there and you haven't studied for it, and then you fail the test, and then you blame yourself because you've not studied. But how do you know if you don't know what to study when you're going through it? But that's part of the human journey, is to forget who you are and reclaim it. And that helps people grow and bring more to the universe. Like, I was only talking yesterday to somebody and I said, you imagine, like, the world without electricity, the world without modern vehicles. Like, we're talking about the way the car engines work and how the fuel gets ignited and pushes the piston down onto the camshaft. And this was designed years ago. These car engines were designed and like they've come so far. And I said, imagine where we're going to be in another 100 years. Because human mind has the capacity, one, to be creative, that's your God self or your soul, and two, is to show you and guide you. If only we can get out of our head and stop expecting the needs of everybody else to meet your need, and to then go in and go, who am I? What am I here for? And start to live with that energy, then we're going to just go round and round in circles. It's like you're stuck in a revolving door. You can see everything on the outside, but you can't get out.
maybe humanity focused more in these material things, technology. Probably back in time when Atlantis was on Earth, they focused more on spiritual things on the inside rather than these discovery inventions and stuff.
Yeah. But we did go through the industrial age, and we're coming now into a more spiritual centered age, like the age of the self, and it lasts for 400 and something years. So we in 2027 that kicks off, and the industrial age is finishing. So that means that all this AI and all of the computers and everything is making us all separate from each other, right? Industrial age made us come together in a lot of ways, working and creating, right? And the computers and everything. When you look at that on a bigger scale, what's going on is we're getting this sense of separation so we can rejoin in a healthier way, right? So all of when you look at the development of all the social media and you know the if you call it like the narcissism around social media and standing on stage for the entire world with different personal things, it's we have to go through that separation before we can rejoin. That's what the crucifixion is.
Otherwise, you don't realize it.
No, you can't. And that's why when you look at what's happening like globally for humanity, we're about to go into this new, like we're already in the overlap now, being 2026, 2027 onwards for 400 years, we're going to be in this like very self-aware. People are going to be walking around not knowing who they are because they realize that computers don't fix them, material things don't fix them. You know, you can have all the industrial age outcome material things, and they're getting to a point where they go, what's this for?
Yes.
You know, even the kids are getting information from their parents going, well, what are we doing? There's a lot of kids that are coming through now going, I don't want to touch drugs. I've watched that generation before me. You know, I want to eat healthy. I want to grow into the best, you know, human being I can. Like they're really quite conscious at a younger age, and this is what we're moving into. But I think the big thing is when we're stuck somewhere. There's a lot of people probably that are between 30 and 70 that are a bit stuck in, I don't know how to do this because I've had this level of brainwashing and conditioning in my life, and I don't know how to become this real person. I don't know how to live authentically because I've been so conditioned. But the best part about this is to allow yourself to go through the crisis, just to allow yourself to sit in that pain of realizing that you've gone through some level of failure. And that failure is where your awakening is. Like, you know, they call spirituality woo woo. It's been around for donkey's years. Like, you go back in any of the history, it's everywhere, spirituality or religion, whatever you want to call it. But there's always about, you know, teaching and like every culture, there is some level of spirituality or a higher power, every single
Yes,
culture. So
exactly.
when you look at that, and the countries are now interlinked through planes and boats and everything else, but prior to that, every country still had its own spirituality. And, you know, to put it into woo woo sense or to call it woo woo is a way of the industrial age holding on to people, like being able to grab them and go, nah, let's put you in the material. Like when you look at that material age, 400 years, it's all been about lack. We can serve you, follow us, do this our way, and you'll be fulfilled, right? So it's become very materialistic. And that's why the development of that materialism has been so quick and so fast because of the age we've been in. But we're now coming into a spiritual age where we can then see, and there's a lot more awareness now. And the beauty of like all of the social media, it's opening this up as well.
Yes, that
It's
helps.
opening people's growth, you know, and people still go, oh, that's weird because they don't understand it. They don't understand um, what it's like to come home to themselves because they haven't gone through the crisis yet.
And they don't know
And
the
that's
steps.
okay. Everyone goes through that.
Like you
No.
said,
But
with
how many people do you know? Go on.
you need some teaching how to do that. It's like going to do, like you said, an exam, but you didn't
Mm.
study, but you need the knowledge. So people need the knowledge, and now there's more opportunity to get that knowledge through social media, through internet. You have the access to knowledge.
Yeah. And, you know, that knowledge might fit different ways. It all still comes to the same learning point, but we might have to go in different zigzag paths to get there. So some people might go through Reiki healing, or they may go to church, or they may go and learn to meditate, or
Whatever
they
feels,
might just sit there and go
yeah,
through the crisis on their own. And that crisis, the big thing of what I call the crisis is the ego's inability to control the outcome. So it's a letting go of the ego, right? The ego mind is there to help you survive, but it beats you up if you don't make it. So it's so narcissistic in itself that it's like, I'm all in control here and I know where I'm going and what we're doing and this is what the goal is. And then when it fails, it turns around and blames you for not making it.
yeah,
But what has it done? It's lead you down a path. And then that path, it is not your
it didn't
true
work.
path. And then it goes, hang on for a minute. I don't know who I am anymore. Oh, look, you're a failure. It literally turns on you the moment it doesn't succeed. Yet it takes you down that path of being the successful one or the loved one or the kind one, this image that you've got to live in. And then when that part fails, what does it do? Beat you up.
Yeah, it's not
That's
my fault,
narcissism.
it's your fault.
Yeah, well, and then what happens is the little child in us starts being over responsible for what we've failed in, but the ego is the one that's held the gauntlet and run with it. And yet the little child in us, which is our real inner soul, that child that has all the needs, the wants, the reassurance, the love, and the demands, it's sort of desires and demands. And the issue we have is the ego is running the show, right? So if the ego falls over because it doesn't have life stitched up the way it should have had, what happens is it literally turns on you and then starts blaming you. That's where depression comes in, because your ego's running this picture to look like a certain part or an identity it's trying to hold on to get love, attention, validation. And the soul's over here, or your child, going, hang on for a minute, what about me? This is what we're doing. And the ego's gone, look, you're a failure. And the child's had nothing to do with it. It's sitting there going, hang on for a minute, like I'm drowning over here. But often I see where depression starts to kick in is where the egos run down this road and the soul's over here, and there's like this separation between the two. And
This is
when
what
there's
I
that,
want, this is what I want. Doesn't,
yeah, well, this is what we need, we as in all of us, this is what we need, and the other one's like, nah, this is what we're doing. So when the ego's running the show, which is what we're conditioned to do, right? The ego's the one that keeps you alive, keeps you in your human side, keeps you fighting the battles, sort of thing. But it's running on conditioning. It's running on programming it's had. It's running on the learned patterns of how to get love and how to get validated, right? But the soul is love. It doesn't need anything from outside. It just needs you to grow and do what you're meant to do. And this is where the separation happens, because this inside is because the soul's trying to show you where to go and the ego's like running the show.
probably that's why many people change their jobs in the different direction when they're like 40, 50, and they say, that's
Yeah.
it. I'm done with you, ego. I want to do what I want.
Yeah. It's really funny because when I was 24, I've been self-employed since I was 24. And I started, going, no, I don't want to work for anybody else. And I was just hell bent all my life working for myself. But I knew that was for me. So I stood my ground, but I was a pretty independent thinker when I was younger. I've watched a lot, even some of my friends now are very still in their old programming. You can see it when they're battling with things. I'm like, you're one decision away from happiness. What are you going to decide? And it's just making those decisions and understanding, like you may have made decisions before that's led you to, that crucifixion feeling, because that's what it is mentally. It feels like a crucifixion because your ego wants a certain thing in order to be validated and loved. But if it just shuts up for a minute and lets the soul guide, it will feel the love. And then it feels reassurance from the soul because the soul's right. in the way to do things. It'll guide you
And it's an
200%.
easier life, more relaxed, more
It's
peaceful,
balance. Yeah.
more balanced. But
Yeah.
do you think the fear of death has something to do with the midlife crisis? Like people
I
reaching a
think,
certain age, they kind of, 'cause usually when you're young, you don't even think of death. Ah, when I'm gonna die, I have plenty of time. But when you're
mm,
older, don't have enough time. What happens when I die? You start questioning,
yeah.
do I still live or do I disappear? It's just like,
But, even I think looking at the bigger picture of that, like when I was going through, my dad passed at 53. And when I turned 53, I went, yes, I've made it. And mum died at 63 and I'm yet to get there. And I'm looking at, you're not looking down the barrel of the gun, but you've got some of that gene pool. And it's being able to look after that and know that you're going to make, a certain period. But if you don't, isn't it important just to live every day like it's your last? My grandfather used to say, live every day like it's Christmas Day. And it's just a beautiful saying because it reminds you to live in the joy of Christmas, live in the joy of being with your family and being present in that day, right? Not that everyone's, Christmas days are wonderful with family, but it's like living with the joy of childhood and being your full self as you're a child.
there's an exercise, like a practice exercise to imagine yourself being older than you are now. Let's say you're in your 40s, imagine you're in the 60s, and then you get granted the wish to come back when you're 40 for a day and go
Yeah.
there and live that day. And now, today, you're in that 40,
Mm.
granted that day. How would you live this day that you've been
Yeah.
granted to go back, to be young again, to have the kids, to have everything? You'd be
Yeah.
amazed and happy.
Well, I remember being young and it was like, yep, get married, have some kids, buy a house, or sorry, I think it was get married, buy a house, have some kids. I did it back to front. And I used to go, geez, I messed up because society taught me get married, buy a house, and have kids. And I used to beat myself up over it. And I'm like, I had kids first, then I bought a house, and then I got married. And there was this element of failure I felt. And then I had to challenge it. And I went, why am I worried about that? Like who said that it has to go a certain way? And I think this is the conditioning we get, right? So, different cultures have different conditioning. It might be we'll pick a partner for you and you'll marry them and that's where you're going to live and this is what life is like and you'll look after us when you're older. That wasn't my experience, but I think the big thing is like have a look at the conditioning you've been through, the expectations that are placed on you to whether they really fit what you want and what your core wants, right? Not this external validation we need from them, is to not remove that, but to actually look and start to serve what we want. And like, is that conditioning fitting me? Is it bringing me to where I want to be? Is it bringing me joy? Is it bringing me happiness? And if not, just start choosing what does. It's just one little choice to
Yes,
change.
I think sometimes we try to please other people, like parents, or to
Partners.
get the validation from them. And then
Absolutely.
you go that way, and then later in life you realize that actually wasn't my way.
No. And I think that's the sacrificial things that we go through that we realize later on. Hang on, I've done all of this. This is the ego. It goes, hang on for a minute, all this output, and where's the input? And then it feels shortchanged, and then it turns on you for giving too much, right? Rather than going, right, I just need to pull back and look after me. But the problem is, a lot of people aren't taught how to look after me. They're taught how to meet everybody else's needs but they're never taught take care of yourself first. You're number one. Look after your health, look after your well-being, and then meet everybody else's needs. They're not taught that. And women in particular are taught to suppress their needs. Don't bring your needs up. That's your husband. He's got to, look after him, keep him comfortable. because without him, you won't have a family unit. Like there's all this brainwashing that goes on. And, I was only talking to a friend the other day about, the conditioning that goes on between the different sexes, right? So the boys are like, get up, you'll be right, you won't die from scraping your knees. But if the little girl falls over, we're down there putting a band-aid and giving her hugs and kisses. But the boy's expected to be able to deal with his emotions at such a young age. And then they bottle it up because it's not accepted, right? Because they're taught, we're not interested in how you feel, man up. And women are like taught in a different way. It's like, okay, we'll tend to your needs, right? But don't have any needs of your own because you've got to serve everybody else. You're here to serve. So we have this conditioning at a very early age to not really be our true self, right? So, and I think this, without going too deep into it, might be some of the gender issues that are coming out now, is because we're not allowed to be who we are. I know people that have grown up with parents that wouldn't accept their sexuality, just wouldn't accept it, and literally culled them out of the family because of they choose the opposite sex of what the parents decided to do. Or they choose to go and, change their gender altogether with surgery and everything else.
It doesn't even matter the sex, gender, and stuff. Sometimes, if they don't approve to whatever the partner is, no, it's not good for you.
Yeah. And it's sort of like, this is why a lot of marriages break up as well, is because the belief systems are different and the expectations of what they want for their children. Like I've been with partners that I had my own company, my own business, and he told me I wasn't allowed to buy a specific type of car. It was my money, my decision, my car, and we were dating, and he was trying to tell me what I couldn't do. And I'm like, where on this planet did you get that idea from? And the whole point is being able to own that space of what's right for you. And nowhere along the line do our parents go, oh, what do you need? Okay, let's tend to all of that and allow you to be you, because they've got all their own stresses going on. They've got jobs they've got to uphold, bills they've got to pay, kids to run around, partners to tend to, plus all of the other pressures that we have as a parent, trying to be their nurse and their bloody counselor and, everything. We're teachers to them. We've got all these demands on us as parents, and we do drop the bundle because we can't be perfect at everything. It's just a natural thing to drop that bundle for a child because of the complexities of being an adult and then trying to look after these little dependents and trying to teach them and develop into something. So we're going to fail them because we don't have all of the equipment to serve that particular soul. I mean, you've got more than one child. None of them are the same. Like, and when I've done readings, you get one really good, easy one, and the other one's a real big challenge because
We compare them, maybe.
well, because you're meant to have two extremes as a parent. Because if you use the role book that you learned with the first easy child and go and put that on the second one, it won't work with the second one because the second one's got different needs, as even in their soul development, they've got different needs. Right? They've
Yes.
got different wants, and they choose parents to learn that growth. They learn literally the conditioning that they get and then having to break that conditioning. That's part of what our soul journey is here anyway. And the sooner we break that conditioning and own who we are, the freer we are from that.
Well,
And
we're
this,
here to learn some things, but we are very slow learners,
well,
unfortunately.
yeah, because we externalize love.
We we think we are adults, but everyone lives that child that still a child.
Yeah. Once I did a lot of my rewiring, my my child needs have just really settled. And that's because I had belief systems that were sitting there, um, like basically, without getting too far into it, basically still needing someone to come to the rescue for me. And I had the same, every client exactly the same, because we have this unmet need as a child, and then we adapt to try and get it met. And then when it's not met, that's the crucifixion, right? So we have this way as a human being conditioned, choosing our parents, being conditioned with that. And then we come out the other side and start looking at what we've been through and go, hang on, that's not my fault, that's their fault. But it's us that has the belief. It's not them that have a belief, but their actions might have installed a belief in us, but it's still our belief.
Yes.
You know, I had one patient that I think he was 3, and he went into hospital with a really bad burn, and a lot of his pain had come from that event of being abandoned in hospital, basically. But he wasn't. He was being taken care of by all the nurses. His parents were coming in. But the belief that he set up there had affected him his whole life until we rewired it.
Wow.
So, yeah. So, and that was just giving him permission to speak up. So sometimes we hold on to events that have happened to us, set up a belief around it to protect ourselves because we don't have the capacity to work through things. We hold on to that belief, and then at some point it gets poked, like the crucifixion comes around that. Now, what I mean by crucifixion, and it's like the psychological, physical death that we're having to face. And that means that the child's psychological and physical death from maybe 3 is being poked again at this
Yes.
midlife crisis time. And you realize you've gone through all of this life, and then one day you wake up and go, no one's ever met that need. How do I meet it? But what happens is they sit in the pain, they get caught in the pain. That's where the depression kicks in, because they realize that they haven't truly lived their own path. And that's the joy of midlife crisis, because what it's doing is making you stop dead in your tracks and going, what was all that for? And when in doing that, you see the emptiness inside. And it's at that point we get caught up in the numbing and self-medicating of the pain, whether it be alcohol, drugs, prescription medication, just needing something to help that void, that painful place where we can see how empty we are, and being able to sit in it and go, what responsibility do I have to me to fix that? And that is often where the rewiring just works like that. We can do a lot of counselling or therapy or, healings and whatnot, but I find the rewiring fix it overnight. So what happens, we go back and fix and heal that belief system, remove it, and then it allows that 3-year-old, for example, to come into today. And you've then got your adult part of your mind that will help nurture and protect that part. So the beauty of the healing, whether you do rewiring or not, the healing brings that child, that your empty, voice and that emptiness that you have, that we try to self-medicate, or the stress, we realize that child's still sitting there, unmet needs.
It's like an unhealed wound that sits there until you heal it. It's still going to be
and
there.
We're still at whatever age as a grown-ass adult, expecting someone to come to fix that. And no one's going to, because it's your belief system. They don't get that, they then start to reject it and go, well, that was an outside experience, so I'm going to blame them, rather than go, hang on for a minute, that's my belief. This is my pain. They might have done something, but it's still yours. You're the one that framed it in a way to survive it, even if you're 3 or 3 months old. Like I had a program in me around survival, financial survival, because my mum had my mum was 6 weeks far from delivering me, and my father had a really bad car accident and had brain damage and died on the operating table. So I picked up a program from my mum that wasn't even mine. And I could feel this undercurrent, something sitting there that was not quite right for me. And I had to go look at it. And I'll tell you what, once I rewired it, altogether different. And it was around survival and financial crisis.
Because we get the worries of other people as well, especially if they're in the family. It's exactly like you're sitting with someone in the same house and they worry about something, you tend to get that worry as well and live it.
Well, yeah, because they're setting up a belief in you
Yeah,
that this is worthy of external fear. Everything,
exactly. Even if it
it,
doesn't have anything to do with you, you still take it inside and live with
yeah,
it.
yeah, because
Make it a fear.
yeah, so the human psyche, like when you look at the ego, that's all based on fear because the ego externalizes and sees everything outside itself. So therefore it has no capacity to meet its own needs. If it would shut up just for a minute and listen to the soul will show you exactly what you've got to do. How do we listen to the soul? You quieten the ego down. This is why meditation is so powerful. Just quieten it down a bit and just, shut up. I don't want to hear that. And meditation teaches you all the different voices. Like you can hear the voices going on and they're combating with each other all the time. Or even
It,
if you're trying to analyze something, should I go on a holiday at Christmas time? Oh, but I've got to think about that and that and that and that and that. And then the other part's going, but we want to go.
but you have to be an observer and observe these thoughts and analyze and look at them, and
Yeah.
then they will melt in some way, or they become more clear.
Which is what I explain in my book, Rekindling Me. It's about learning those voices and what their agendas are and being able to be educated in a way, which is that skill before you hit the test, right? It's
Okay.
like if you don't have the skills, go find them. It's not a failure to not have the skills. It's a failure when you don't do anything about it and you sit in the pain for months, years, centuries. That's when you fail yourself, is when you don't take responsibility for your own level of happiness, right? But we have to feel like we're drowning, breathing through a straw in a swamp sometimes before we actually make a decision to survive beyond, living in the pain that we're in.
But what people should do not to get to middle life crisis, they should start earlier to analyze themselves, I guess. Eh?
I,
So
I think that,
usually middle
that,
life crisis happens when you're like around 40, 50, I guess.
yeah, I think it's a bit different for different people. Like, I think mine was late 30s, but I'd been opened up to spirituality fairly early. I had to look at myself and go, what do I want? And at that point, even I was probably um, 45 before I made the career change. And I decided to go into more spiritual support and wanting to help. And I worked in IT. I used to project manage and do accounting and all sorts of things. And talk about go from one side of the brain to the other. But I wanted to go and live and support people. So I had to sit with all of the people around me going, what are you doing? You're going from earning mass amount of money, self-employed, over to, supporting people, which was nowhere near the money. But I had joy in it and I had to live with it, and I still cop it at times. And I'm like, you worry about your life and I'll live mine. Thank you. I'm not asking you to do anything about mine.
You have
Yeah,
to follow whatever you feel inside, but not many
absolutely.
people do.
No, well, it's hard. It's hard because one, you've already got your identity around your job or your role, and how that meets everybody else's needs, particularly if you're a provider.
You have
And
to
then
let that part of you die.
go, yes, right? So it's about having enough strength to find a way. This is the purpose of the ego mind, is to work on the goals that the soul is showing you. It is a strategic analytical tool that you use to amplify what your soul is showing you. My soul was like, get out of this IT world. It's too much stress. You're not aligned to it. You have to walk away. I could see that that transition was going to be hard financially, but I knew I could live in a cave with my kids. It didn't matter to me. I knew I had the resources to always build. Right. So and that was through life experience gave me those, not that wasn't natural born stuff. I had to walk the road to find that resource in myself to go, I can do this change. And it's like being able to look back. Like I say to my clients all the time, do an assets and a liabilities list. Assets of everything that you've learned in this life, every skill you've got, do a list, everything, whether it's changing nappies to washing cars to, doing big reports for work, or you're learning to drive, driving boats or cars or trucks, whatever. Write every skill down. Now go and write your liability list down. And the liability list will be all about your failures, of how you felt like you're a failure. And then they're the things you can fix because you've already got this massive skill set. And people forget when they're in that dark space or in going through the crucifixion, they forget their assets.
They focus only on negatives.
Yeah, right? Because the ego does that. It's about punishing when it hasn't achieved. So the important part, a role to put your ego in is go, okay, how do we find the skill set to be able to move to where we want to go? We're too painful where we are. We have to find a way through. And it's being able to look at that skill set and go, all right, I've conquered that at this point. I've made a big life change there. So why can't I do it now? And it's challenging it and
Because
giving it a
people,
set of tasks.
yes, people think it's too late. I'm too old,
Yeah.
too tired. I can't put that effort into changing so much.
They're tired because they've given up themselves.
Yes.
They're tired of making effort and not getting return. But here's the joy is when you start making an effort for yourself, you get the rewards because you're living authentically and the universe will align to that. It's where your manifestation is. That's the avenue of that. The whole point, when you look at the bigger picture psychologically, the whole point of your ego is the taskmaster. That's the thing that can help you achieve your goals. You don't let it run the show for you. If it runs the show, it'll take you into the ditch. You give it the roles that it's got to do from what you believe on a core level that feels set in stone that you have to do, and then move forward. Now, if you can't find that set in stone, you need to quieten the ego down a bit and the soul will show you. We all have that passion of, I'm sure you had it in your teens. You want to do something, but you're told to go off and do a different job. It's something you live. Like I really wanted to be a police officer and a forensic criminologist when I was young, but I was too short to get into the police force. So I never went down that, but it was always, I had this psychology around wanting to help. I have a school counsellor badge from year 9. This was part of who I am. I fell into IT and it was a great financial provider, but that's not where my heart was. My understanding of psychology at a very early age was just part of my natural disposition. So I had to lean into that. And the beauty of what I've been able to gather is that psychology and then how the spirituality fits into it from my experience with spirit. So when we look at the bigger picture, we're only taught how to be human in this planet. We come in here to be separated from our oneness of our home, to come in here and develop and grow the planet. Now, even if we're in a matrix or not, we're still manifestors. We're still creative beings. I mean, you read it all through the Bible. Is we're there to create. That's what we're here for. But how do we create if we're not aligned to who we really are? That's why we go into jobs and we think we're doing all the right things because we're providing.
It's like it's like you're trying to build something, but you don't have the tools. When you're
Well, yeah,
yourself and you do whatever you like, you have the tools because that's who you are.
you're directionless though.
Yes.
When you're going through that phase, you think your direction is meeting the needs of these people so they'll love you back. And then when they disappear or they start moving away from you, having their own lives, and finding, even when your partner's trying to find their identity, and that's when the emptiness comes because you're seeking love outside. We're educated to do that, right? That's the way the world works. But where the spirituality kicks in, or the sense of self and the ownership of self, is in sitting in that pain and going, okay, what's my responsibility in fixing this? Not everyone's let me down. It's owning that you let yourself down in that process without understanding that when you're doing it. And it's about not beating yourself up and go, okay, where to from here? What do I really want? Being able to get the punishment voices and the guilt inducing and the shame voices out of your head and start to lean into who you are. That's what spirituality is. It's not an external force up there. It's leaning into the spiritual person that you are, or the self-honoring person, to live in a space of complete harmony, of being aligned to who you are, not the rest of the world. And when you come into that alignment, you can then live fully because you have love to give without needing anything back.
Yes, but coming to give some people some practice, I think meditation is the key, isn't it?
It
In order
slows the mind
to get
down.
in
Yeah.
touch with yourself. I don't think
Look, I
there's other
think
way.
meditation's hard for some people. The reason why it's so hard is their mind is so busy, is trying to run the show all the time.
And that's the meditation, to try to quiet your mind, to listen to your soul.
Yeah,
And
exactly. And
indeed,
learning
it's hard.
technique. Yeah, but a lot of the ego, right, is it's been conditioned. You think of a computer hard drive, information in, information out. So if that computer hard drive has only got certain level of skills or resources in it, or brainwashing, whatever you want to, conditioning, whatever
It's
you want to
only,
call it,
it's gonna use only
that's
that.
all you're going to get out of that ego, that part of that mind. That's not one mind. We've got different voices in the mind with different agendas. That ego voice is going to just run on the information in that computer hard drive. So if that information in there is not making you happy, you need to shut it down,
Delete,
rewire it, or
put something else.
reprogram it somehow, and put something else in there, a new skill set. So when you do that, that's when the mind starts to settle, because what happens is the soul can come up and speak, and it feels like it's got a guiding light to work towards. But where a lot of us struggle is we're so far in that mind, ruminating, going through the computer hard drive, trying to find a different answer, and it's not there. You just keep ruminating and ruminating, and then it's like, look, I'm useless. I've got no answers, and it collapses on itself. So
Because, yeah,
when you're going through that process, that's the time to go, whoa, look at my head. Look what's going on in my mindset. It's fried, because it's only looking at the information in there, right? And it's like getting to that MBA test, the Masters of Business. When you go into that test and you fail it because you don't have the information, and then beat yourself up because you've got a fail, it's the same thing. But logically, when you think about somebody sitting for a test without studying or learning any skills for it, of course they're going to fail. But yet the ego then turns around and blames you for not having the information, because it's a computer hard drive. The ego mind literally is information stored. And Google's great. You go and hit up Google of what time the shops are shutting, because you don't have it in your mind. You
yeah,
don't beat yourself up over what time the
you don't
shops.
have to know it.
Yeah, you don't have the knowledge in there, right? But the human mind blames you for not having the knowledge on life skills when you haven't learnt them.
I think as a soul, we have to brainwash our brain. Like instead of watching violent movies, you can do that all day. That's gonna be in your head. So
Yeah.
set your goal. how I want to be, and then pour into your brain and watch, let's say, get the knowledge from the internet, from podcasts, from anywhere, and brainwash your brain only with that information. And slowly, slowly, you're going to bring it in alignment with your goal that you set already.
Absolutely. And I think,
And meditation, maybe when you go to bed, when you wake up, just do the
yeah,
meditation, clear your mind, remind yourself of your goal, and set your day before the day happens. Step into the day that you already planned.
yeah,
Otherwise,
exactly.
the day is gonna take over you. It's like you're going on a sea and you
Distraction.
don't know how the weather is gonna be.
Yeah. And one thing to remind people is meditation doesn't need to be sitting down listening to music. You can light a candle and literally try and just stay hyper focused on that candle and the flame.
Yes,
It's
that's
to not allow the thoughts to come in, or to be aware of when the thoughts come in and why it's coming in.
one
Why
point
can't
focus.
why can't you focus? Yeah, or to look at a red light while you're sitting at the red lights and do the same thing, and the green one will come, and and you don't have to literally drop completely to almost sleep into theta. The important part
No,
is just to learn the little things first.
actually, that's what I thought initially. Initially, when I started meditation, I had the impression that it's some sort of hallucinating, going into a sleeping mode.
Mm.
Actually is more like being very aware of the moment and being very in the moment,
Yeah.
not
And
drift away into a sort
yeah,
of sleep mode. You actually
yes,
have to
exactly.
be very, very present.
Yeah. And I've had meditations where I've had, out of body experiences because I've allowed the mind to be quiet. And at first when you're starting, your mind's rampant and you're just like, whoa, you can see so much going on. And you're not even trying to trigger the thoughts. You're not asking or prompting thoughts. They're
They
just going.
come.
And like being able to just be observant of what your mind is thrashing around, and like being able to sort of sit outside and just have a look at what's going on, and then like using that observing part of your mind to go be quiet, like just stop, and coming into that sort of more centered place. But you can have all different experiences with meditating. That's how I worked out that I was a medium, from meditating after dad died when I was 24. And I was getting all these different visions and flashes, and my third eye had opened, and it was just like, whoa, hang on for a minute, like it's just too much. And then I'm like, slow it down, just slow down, just not get afraid of it, and just to allow the visions to come in, but not have to act on them. And the soul will open this up for anybody anyway, but it's just learning to slow the mind down so that you can perceive what part of you is talking. So we've got different parts of our mind. So we've got these are all termed in psychology. So we've got what we call the ID, which is the child part of you. We've got the ego, which is the adult observing part, and then we've got what we call the super ego, which is the parent. So the parent's like your computer database. The adult's the observing part and the decision making, but often the adult's not present when we've got previous beliefs where we've got unsolved emotional issues and unhelpful beliefs that aren't working for us today. And then the child's like your soul. That's the 100 miles an hour. I want what I want. We're moving towards this. These are demands, but it's got no brakes. So the adult's very important. Now, where the soul comes in is the soul talks to the adult. So the soul gives the information to the adult for the direction and the new support of what the ego and the child was, sorry, the parent and the child. So the parent and the child are the two that fight it out all the time. And the adult, often, if it hasn't got regulation around this emotional area, the adult's not been able to be allowed and present in that area in the mind. So
Yeah.
the belief system's keeping that at bay. And so when you remove the belief system and challenge that belief system and heal that, and that can be done through mountains of different ways, what it does is bring that adult back into presence, and then the adult can observe the infighting between the parent and the child. Because when you look at it, the ego mind, which is really the super ego in psychology terms, that part of us is fighting for survival all the time. Doesn't matter what quality of life you're having, but it's still fighting for survival, identification, getting its needs met, and being validated and loved in return. The child is love. It's like, this is what you're destined to do, right? You've got this support system upstairs, whatever you want to call it, up in heaven, or your guides, or your God self, but they're there to guide what you're doing, right? For whatever challenge that you've come down here for, whatever lessons or learning.
Yes.
So, and whatever development you have assigned to for the planet, right? So this part of you is constantly in battle with the ego that's here for survival. So it's learning to suppress the ego a little bit. That's where all your pain comes from. It's all the negative aspects. It's all your distorted emotions. It's all of the, agenda of fight and survive and, that conquer or be conquered. So when we've got that fighting with our child, that's when we're in two minds all the time. That's why it's really hard. And people don't know how to identify those two. And when we're going through midlife crisis, they're both at it, like equally at it. Because the soul's wanting to resurrect you and the human mind's starting to fall apart because it doesn't have the answers and it's looking outside for love. But the soul is actually there going, hang on for a minute, can you not hear? I'm giving you the instructions, but you're not listening. What are you doing? And it just ruminates. It just keeps ruminating, going round and round and blaming itself when it doesn't have the answers. And the mistake is where we don't go looking for the skills or we don't go looking for the healing. And we just keep ruminating. That's what drugs and alcohol is so good at keeping you there. It solves the pain just for that moment.
Yeah, it goes forever.
It keeps you caught us in there. And then mentally you spiral because they're not solving the problem. They're just numbing it for a while. And then you're round and round and round.
And then they start again.
Still ruminating and not looking outside because as children, men aren't allowed to express, right? Men aren't allowed to go and look for answers. They're weak if they aren't strong. And then, women go down that road of, I've got to meet the needs of everyone, so I'm loved back. So I have to suppress who I am. So where in the patterning are we learning to meet our own needs? We're not. And then we come to this crisis and go, well, what was all that for? All I've done is worked and given up me to get love back, and now it's not there. Where is it? What am I doing? And it's like then the reclaiming has to start to happen. We need to look outside of ourselves. We all need mentors. I've got a coach. There's nothing wrong with looking for someone for information. I don't have marketing skill set at all.
People know everything. Yeah.
They're really highly skilled in things, but they don't have what I have. I'm just their mentor. They're learning a skill. That's all it is. So when we look at it, there's different people in the world with their skills, and we need to reach out and get some mentoring. And that's part of the healing, is realizing we don't have the answers and we've got to go look. And then it's like, there it is.
I found the solution.
And we reclaim. Yeah, we reclaim it. And there's absolutely nothing wrong with doing that. One of the joys I have with coaching men is allowing them to be who they really are, just allowing them to come into their emotional self and giving them the safety of being able to express who they are. And they come in so vulnerable, but it's beautiful to watch them come out the other side of really owning who they are and realizing their pain has just come back from 30, 40, 50 years ago. They're realizing that the beliefs they've picked up, and they go, wow, I didn't realize that it was back to that. They had no idea, because it's buried in the subconscious.
Yes.
But the subconscious, well, if you pause long enough, the subconscious will give you the information.
Well, if you stop and listen, but usually the life gets busy and you never have that time.
Well, and that's the whole point, right? That's the
Yeah,
programming. And so that's why midlife crisis happens in midlife.
because you have a bit more time to think about those things.
Yeah, and you don't have the dependencies on you anymore,
Yes,
or you're tired. You're tired of doing the same thing, giving up yourself. You're tired of going to a job that doesn't meet your needs anymore. Meets everybody else's, food's on the table, roof over everyone's head, but it doesn't meet the soul of you. And so it's very important to be able to go in and go, who am I? What do I want? There's nothing wrong with that. Your identity that the ego is holding on to is what you've been brainwashed to be to get love. So it's important to come back out of that brainwashing and start checking in and, allowing the soul to, or that gut feeling. It's sit with the gut feeling, sit with the sense that, oh, this doesn't feel right for me, and lean into what is right for me. And like giving yourself the time, it won't be an overnight process when you first learn this stuff, how to start listening. It becomes a process where the soul will give you bits and pieces because you can't get a whole big picture. You get a piece of the puzzle from the soul, and you're like, not quite sure what that means. Sit with it. There'll be another piece that comes in next to it, and another bit, and another bit. And slowly that picture will build because your ego mind can't handle that.
the whole
It can't
picture.
handle it because your ego mind's so gridlocked on your survival, it needs to just feed one, piece of the puzzle at once. And you'll probably see in your life, tell me if you agree with this, when you're gone through change, you get snippets of it. You don't get the whole thing. You get a sense of it, but
Yeah,
you don't get the bits of information, the crucial bits of information that needs to come in. And when that last piece of puzzle comes in, you go, now I know what I've got to do. So you get all this pull coming from the soul, right? And the reason why they have to spoon feed our egos is because our egos are control freaks.
can't take it
That
all at once.
no, not at all. And I use ego in the word that people relate to it, right? In
Yes,
psychology, ego is the adult self, but the super ego, there's a lot that's above the iceberg and then there's a hell of a lot down below that you're not aware of. So when we look at, how much of our consciousness is awake and that iceberg, when
yes,
we've got 10 times the size underwater, we don't know what's down there. And until you stop to pay attention, this is why meditation's great. You stop to pay attention to the thoughts that are going out there and are ruminating, and you can go, whoa, that's not a helpful thought. What am I thinking that for?
yeah,
You
yeah,
become more controlled over that ego mind. And when
yeah,
that adult voice comes up, it starts to look at the noise that's going on, that's where you start to get your power and you start to get choice.
yeah. You have to watch them fight in your brain, and then you can control them and stop them. And
Yes,
slowly, slowly,
yeah,
they
so
will
that
shut up.
yeah, so what happens is the ego, the adult self is watching the infighting, right? Now,
Yes,
sometimes that adult self, if we've got some level of suppression on us or we've got belief systems where we're not allowed to be authentic or our true self, that adult won't make a decision over those two. It'll just let them fight. And eventually, there's so much psychic tension between the two. One's got to win. Prisoner, and it's powerful. The parent either wins or the child wins. There's no win-win. But what happens when the adult comes in? It starts to meet the needs of the child and hush the parent and give the parent the security it needs. And where it really is powerful is when the soul feeds to the adult what's next, how to manage this.
yes,
And it's being able to be conscious enough just to hear that gut feeling or that little, message that comes through. No, now's the time to leave the job, resign, you're done. Or And it's not this battle between, oh, if we leave the job, we're going to have nothing, we're going to lose our house, we're going to lose this, we're going to lose that. And the child's going, but I'm drowning, I can't do this anymore. And the adult will hear the soul go, nah, time to resign. And then the adult will kick in and go, nah, I'm resigning. So the important part is just to understand this framework of how your mind works, to be able to allow the soul to speak when you've got the high psychic tension. The psychic tension's the battle.
Yes.
Right. And when you hear that, you get the adult to action it straight up. It was like when I was driving back I knew I was moving, right? And I think I've told you this story, but I knew I was moving and I'm in the middle of, country Queensland. And I turned the music off I'm driving back on my own, turned the music off, and I thought, I'm going to ask Spirit what they want me to do next. Next minute, the suburb of the sign, a road come up, and I'm like, oh, that was quick. And I went, you sure? And then I got another one at the same sign at the suburb where I wanted to move to. And I went, okay, so I'm moving, thanks. That was,
pay attention.
I relented. I just relented into that. And like 2 days later, I found the house.
Yeah, you have to pay attention.
Yeah, so the soul will show you what your next steps are. The soul will give you the guidance, but you've got to be brave enough to learn to follow it or learn to understand it up, like when is speaking. It's a very subtle voice. It's very direct, but it's not powerful, if that makes sense. It's a deep power, but it's not a control freak power.
Yes, it doesn't really demand. It just gives you
it's guidance. That's all
guidance,
it is.
yeah.
Guidance, yeah.
If
It's like
the right
when you
thing, go and do it. It's saying this is the right thing to do. That's the correct one. It's gonna tell you.
My speaker just died. What was that, Joel? Sorry?
No, I was saying it's gonna tell you that that's the correct thing to do, and you feel that it's right.
It'll be certainty, definitely.
For sure is the right thing to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, Liz, I think we cover some good points here, and I hope people can get what they need. And I think we can talk for another hour or two probably on the same subject. I can never finish, but
let's hope we've covered some good things then for people.
Good things, yes.
Yeah.
And maybe we can help others, and through this discussion, we help ourselves as well.
Absolutely.
And
it's all about self-ownership at the end of the day.
Yes, exactly. We'll go through kind of the same thing. We learn from each other.
Absolutely. Yeah.
The journey of life.
Absolutely. 100% agree with you.
And we'll talk in the next one, and we'll bring something more interesting.
Awesome. Thank you very much for having me on today.
Thank you very much.
Okay. Take care. Bye.
Bye.